There's another way to look at the top centers of all time in the NBA. And that is, I've looked at a new list of it and saw a list, and I'm still going to stick with the main ones I know for now. And I'm not challenging people that I know all the stats and facts. I'm talking about an approach, a formula for how people determine who really fits in the top. And it's hard to do that because this is it right here. Here's the formula. You got well-rounded players who can shoot free throws and shoot inside and out and play defense. Those are your most well-rounded players. And that's Kareem and David Robinson and Hakeem Olajuwon. And not in that order. I'm not sure what's the order. It's hard to put Hakeem behind Kareem when Hakeem is a powerhouse on defense. And then nobody ever talks about David Robinson being a powerhouse on defense. But he has the best defensive rating of everybody on the list I'm going to name. Dwight Howard better than Shaquille, and Dwight may have better than Shaquille on defensive rating on the computer defensive rating. So that's the computer defensive rating isn't biased. But so Dwight Howard's on my list. Then Bill Russell falls in another a category actually. So my categories are Wilt Chamberlain, Shaquille O'Neal, and Dwight Howard. And the funny thing is, Wilt Chamberlain falls into a mediocre category too because he does shoot some outside shots, but not three-pointers. Well, none of these guys did a lot of three-pointers back then. But this is it. I could put the thing about Dwight Howard and Shaquille O'Neal. Most of their shots were in the paint, and so I think they both have the highest field goal rating. And so I might assess based on the study I just did from this angle I'm taking, I would take Dwight Howard and Shaquille, which I think Shaquille's tops out Dwight Howard. But maybe not on running the court, though. Maybe not on going to defend the perimeter players. So in small ball, Dwight Howard would be the best. So in a sense, right? Probably. In the running game, maybe Dwight Howard might be the best over Shaquille, that is. But if you're running full court, in other words, if you're doing a lot of fast breaking. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Shaq's okay at that. If he goes and takes a breather and doesn't eat a Big Mac while he's on the bench. So according to Kobe. But the reason, so they have high field goal percentage. They don't shoot outside. So actually, sometimes I like that kind of center. If I have a good power forward, and what I mean by good, for me, what's good, I do like the stretch forward, power forward. So some of the newer ones to me, I like Kevin Garnett. I like for power forward. If I have him, I might like Shaquille as my center. So, but I also Wilt Chamberlain or Dwight. So if I have Dirk Nowitzki, I like those same centers I just mentioned. The ones that shoot in the paint. So they have the highest field goal percentage, meaning they miss fewer shots. You give them the ball, they're going to make the shot. They're not going to take any hard shots, but I would let my power forward do all that. Let them take the three-pointers, the outside shots, and I want that powerful center. That's the way I like it. Now, the way they play the game sometimes and spread the floor, you need a player that can do it all. And so, really, Kareem, but especially I think Hakeem, can dunk it a lot. Kareem got maybe more jump shots than slam dunks. Maybe 50-50. But and I think David Robinson and Kareem can get to the basket and dunk it. They're a little more quick and compared to Kareem. Now I don't know that 100% because I didn't. I'll say if I've studied the least film of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I just took people's word for it. I've watched some stuff, and he's aggressive. He's got a lot of stamina. But I haven't seen him slam dunk the ball a whole lot. I don't see tons of highlights. I've seen him do it, but I don't remember a lot of highlights of him slam dunking the ball. I like slam dunks because it's the highest percentage rate shot. So, but I would say Hakeem could get to the basket and slam it, no problem. I would say he's one of the better ones at that. So is Shaquille. Shaquille's the best at it, and Dwight and Shaquille are two of the best. And I don't have a rating on that specific shot. That's something to look at because there may be some players that are good at that who would surprise you. It's like it surprised me that LeBron James has a better rating on that than anybody in the game from the perimeter. better than Jordan. You wouldn't think he's got a better rating at going in and slam dunking it than Michael Jordan, because Michael Jordan's does it real fancy like, right? So maybe some of the times Jordan did those spin around moves and stuff and missed. Maybe that hurt his percentage down there. So it'd be nice to study what centers had the most slam dunks. But I like the fact that Dwight Howard sometimes had 58%, maybe more. I like, even when you're going low budget centers nowadays, when you're thinking that you have to, and you're studying teams and you want your team to get this person, so you look at their budget and say, come on, you can get this guy. I like some of these centers that shoot all the way up into the 60s and 70 percentile, because all they do is slam dunk. They don't have a good shot outside, and they don't waste time trying to shoot one. So they don't have missed shots from out there, because they're just there to catch the lob and make the slam dunk. And they're good defense. If it's a good defensive player, that's, to me, a good player to have. I mean, and let all your other four players do the work outside. So as long as they can defend, go out to the perimeter and defend 3-point shooters, and they're not a good shooter themselves, but they can protect the rim, and they can slam dunk it really well. That's sometimes what I want from a center, especially if I have a stretch four. So I don't mean to mention the stretch fours, but I'm going to do it real quick. But a stretch four would be Anthony Davis. If he was used at stretch four his whole career, he might be the best at that position ever, maybe. You got Kevin Garnett, you got Dirk Nowitzki, who may be the best, and as a stretch four scorer, he may be the best ever. His defensive rating is on trial. I don't believe what everybody says about these guys, and I think I've looked at his defensive rating, and it wasn't that low on the chart. So for me, sometimes I think, am I messing up by not putting Dirk Nowitzki at my power forward position? Tim Duncan, I didn't see him shoot outside a lot, but he had a pretty good jump shot, I think, but good on defense. But to me, he plays more like a center. I might put him at center. I mean, but he's not somebody I've studied his game as much as other players either. But I just look at the ratings, his defensive rating, and I didn't know why people always favored him right off, because he's Mr. Fundamental. He doesn't look super fast, but he does a lot because he's so fundamental. He's smart, quick. Anyway, but he doesn't strike you as a athletic player, but he's a smart player. So back to the centers. Here's my centers. And here's what I don't know. I don't know David Robinson. I think they've lied about for years. Shaquille claimed for years that David Robinson wouldn't give him an autograph when he was in high school. And the media didn't used to have ball players. The ball players that are in the media nowadays, a lot of them, some of them are into the bias, but there's a lot of them that when they hear a good point, they like to be more honest and evaluate the player in full. They don't like hearing you forget about Scottie Pippen and act like Jordan did it by himself. Jordan never won a championship, until he got Scottie Pippen. He lost to Larry Bird. They don't talk about that. They always talk about LeBron lost to this one. LeBron couldn't win without so-and-so. And then they act like Jordan won all the time. But you don't know anything about Jordan before you had Pippen. He didn't win. He lost to Larry Bird. So Larry Bird had Kevin McHale, who is underrated. And to me, he should be debated in one of the best power forwards of all time. If you look at his shooting percentage. His shooting percentage is in the mid to upper 50s, I think. At least mid 50s. And so he's got some of the highest shooting percentage ever. His field goal percentage, which means he doesn't have many missed shots compared to other people. Compared to most, he has one of the best shooting percentages in league history at power forward, right? And better than the perimeter shooters. And so Charles Barkley has good shooting percentage. Kevin McHale's a good rebounder. Charles Barkley's a good rebounder. McHale may be rated better on defense. I have to double check that at some point. I don't know when. But So, but he's not in the top of the debate. But if I double check all that stuff, I might say he's got to be in there in that debate. I might end up doing that. But so Bird had some players. He had Kevin Johnson, was it? He says that was Dennis Johnson. I forgot the name. But his point guard, he says it was the best player he's ever played with. And I know McHale's is good. And then Robert Parrish is a good center. He wasn't. He's near somewhere up there, and he's above 50 percentile. He's one of the better centers I've heard. But now the list I saw today, he didn't make that list that somebody made. But anyway, so then he's had other teammates too. I think he had Mark Price for a while. I'm not sure about that. But that's a 3-point shooter who was pretty well rounded. I'm not sure if they played together actually, but I think they did. Anyway, don't quote me on that. But so here's the list. It's Kareem, not in that order. Your 3 well-rounded players. And here's the point: Bill Russell. When it comes to Shaquille, Dwight Howard, Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, David Robinson, and Hakeem Olajuwon, you could say all of those players I just named are two-way players. But when it comes to Bill Russell, those are good top of the line two-way players. When it comes to Bill Russell, I'm not going to say he's not a two-way player, but he's not a top of the line two-way player on offense for scoring. That is, I'm not going to say he is a good offensive player, coordinating the game. He was a decent scorer, but he was never a big scorer, and played in the paint and wasn't a big scorer. And so all those other guys are. I'm not saying. I mean, he scored enough to where he could be good enough to. I mean, I'd want him on my team because he was known for his defense. So compared to those guys, he's a one-way player. But he's not a one-way player. If he's on any normal team, not an all-star team, he'd still be considered a two-way player, but just not a powerhouse on offense for scoring. He's still a powerhouse for rebounding, getting the ball, and running and fast breaking. By the way, he coached fast breaks on the floor and stuff. He manned those. He quarterbacked them. And he got most of the rebounds on defense. So he was his good guy to be the guy that's playing quarterback. He got the rebound. He could pass the ball, and so he just doesn't fit in this category. As much as these guys scored, he doesn't fit into. In that sense, it's like, how can you put him in the top 10 if he's not scoring like these guys are? I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah, he won all the most championships, but that's a team. The team won the championships. He wasn't their leading scorer. I mean, I don't even know that who the leading scorer was, but I don't see how he could have been the leading scorer. I mean, so usually. By the way, most of the time nowadays we judge people as being the leading scorer, gets MVP as long as they weren't bad on defense. But almost every time they look at the person who's the leading scorer, Russell Westbrook and different people for MVP, even if they're not the best defensive player. I think Russell was pretty good on defense, but it's debatable. So, I mean, according to what I just simplified how you're going to evaluate these centers. Okay. So the hard part is for people, they want to put Kareem in front of Olajuwon. We'll break it down to Hakeem and Olajuwon. I mean, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Hakeem Olajuwon. Hakeem Olajuwon is a superpower on defense, people say. And he looks like he is. He seems to be. He's a good shot blocker and everything. And Kareem's okay. He's good too, but Hakeem just edges him out. Hakeem has lots of moves on the offense, scoring baskets, and he shoots outside. They both do. So it's hard for me to see how people, when you look at all that, how did people put Kareem in front of Hakeem in their peak? I can see how they do it for the whole career. He had a longer career of success. But Hakeem, in his prime, both of their primes, he seems to be the better player. To me, the faster player. They're both aggressive, but maybe Hakeem's a little more aggressive and on defense and faster, I would think. You have to double check that, but I'm pretty sure. Okay. But then and they're both good three free throw shooters. As far as I need to study Hakeem Olajuwon a little more on that. I need to refresh and see if it's much different. I mean, to me, it doesn't matter if somebody has a better free throw percentage if it's within 5% difference or 10% even maybe. But if it's more than 10%, then you can make a bigger deal out of it. But I bet those guys are pretty equivalent. I'm not sure. I don't remember that stat. I forget. So but I would say they were all decent free throw shooters, not bad free throw shooters. And that's Kareem, Hakeem, and David Robinson. Okay? So everybody talks about Hakeem and how aggressive he is and everything else. But then you go to the defensive rating stats, and David Robinson scores higher than both of them. He scores higher than Shaquille. He scores higher than, and then you find out, now I'm finding out that David Robinson sat out a few games in the fourth quarter because he already had 60 points and he didn't want to be out there and running up the score and showing off and be chasing the high points. But he easily could have been the highest point scorer, maybe set some records. I don't know if he could have gone as high as Wilt, but he sat out the fourth quarter with 60 points. I mean, because he had 60 by the third quarter, at least in one game that I heard about. I know he had a 71-point game. Nobody ever talks about that. They try to leave that off, and that's bias right there. I mean, that to me is the most clear bias, that they never want to mention the fact that David Robinson scored a 70, I think it was 71. It was 70 or 71, if not 72, but I think 71. And, that was, he did it, right? So, but he had more games where he scored 60. I heard he had more games where he scored 60. I haven't studied that. I just heard that yesterday somewhere. But one particular game, somebody debated that, he sat out a game, the fourth quarter, because he didn't want to compete for the high points. And I guess they were winning. Maybe they were losing by too much and couldn't come back, or maybe they were winning. So, winning by so much they couldn't lose. So, anyhow, I still think David Robinson, based on the stuff I know about him, because he can run the full court, he can dribble like a point guard all the way up and down the court, he can shoot outside, and in today's game, I wouldn't be surprised if he were shooting more three-pointers, and could play stretch four, because he had a good outside shot. Not as good as, somebody said, not as good as so-and-so the other day. I forget who that so-and-so is, but David Robinson was a good outside shooter, and he could slam dunk it, and he was known for, he had loads of shot blocks, and he had rebounds. He had everything. So they wanted to put Hakeem in front of Robinson, and they'd show a few battles where Hakeem won. I'm sure there's some battles where David Robinson won. And then so their case to say that David Robinson's just not the best because he's too nice. So he's too nice, but they're believing the fact that he wouldn't sign Shaquille O'Neal, give him an autograph in high school. But, which he wouldn't have done that. He didn't do it. Shaquille admitted that wasn't true. So I think part of their bias, though, was because of what Shaquille was saying about him for so many years. Anyhow, his David Robinson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Hakeem, neither of the three have as good a shooting percentage as Shaquille O'Neal or Dwight Howard, if I recall. And I'm going to double check that at some point. You can double check me on it. Look at Wikipedia or something. And but that's because they shoot outside more. So. But I like the fact that they shoot outside more, and they're more well-rounded, and you can mix it up. And of those three guys, I don't know which one can guard the perimeter the best. Now in today's game, like if you have to go out and guard a three-point shooter, is Hakeem better at that or David Robinson? And I would say Hakeem and David both I would suspect, are probably both better than Kareem at guarding the perimeter. So I'm not just talking hoopla and how dare you say Kareem's not the best. I'm telling you why. I'm sitting here telling you the reasons. Because David Robinson is the most well-rounded, from what I can see, over Hakeem and Kareem. But all three of them are well-rounded. And that's what I mean by well-rounded. They could play anything. I think David Robinson would switch over to the forward position better than the others, and I think him and Kareem could guard the perimeter. But Kareem, I think I recall Kareem guarding the perimeter, being known for being able to do that, but I'm not positive. All right. So, but I'll tell you who else can guard perimeter players. I'm pretty sure is Dwight Howard. So one thing that's good about Dwight Howard is he can go out and guard the perimeter. Okay. So if I have a good power forward like Dirk Nowitzki or Kevin Garnett or if I put LeBron James or Larry Bird at the power forward position for the stretch four. And there's a few other players I could name. I'm not naming Tim Duncan because I'm wanting it to be a stretch four. Now, maybe Tim, I've seen him shoot some three-pointers, but he wasn't known for doing that, right? He didn't do it much. But maybe near the end of his career he did, because I saw him do it. But if you have one of those players, power forward, maybe I like Shaquille as my center. Or Dwight. Not just Shaquille, but Dwight. I might even like Dwight the best. Not because he's the better powerhouse over Shaquille, but maybe because he can run a little more, in my view. And he can go out and guard if he gets runs into a center that can play all over. He can guard out there at the 3-point line. So now he's not as tall. So Shaq's taller, and Wilt Chamberlain's even taller. So I'm forgetting Wilt Chamberlain. I would still wager on Wilt Chamberlain being the best for that. He could probably guard the perimeter. He can shoot, slam dunk it. He can be a powerhouse like Shaq if he wanted to, but he didn't usually do that. He tried to be finesse. He did shoot outside more than Dwight and Shaq. The only weakness Wilt Chamberlain had was free throws, just like Shaq and Dwight. So they have that weakness. See? And I kind of like a guy that can slam dunk it and get the foul anyway. So that's why I might rethink. I still hesitate most of the time. Even if I have a stretch four, I still like having David Robinson or Hakeem Olajuwon, personally. All right. And then, so I'll just reiterate that, if I'm just thinking it over real quick and I'm scared I'm going to be lacking somewhere, if somebody gets hurt or whatever, I want David Robinson to be able to fill a hole. And that Shaq and Dwight Howard, I wouldn't think could fill it as well. Now Dwight says he could play. He could. They could be an all-star team if he had 5 centers playing point guard, shooting guard, power forward, and you could probably if you put. You could put David Robinson at a shooting guard or something. You could put him at point guard, I would think. I don't know how good he'd be at the whole point guard role, but he can run the court. He can dribble. That's the thing I like about David Robinson. And people underestimate all that. They didn't think about it. They don't look at it because he plays conservative a lot of times. But he can do those things. I don't know how well, but I've just seen him dribble. And I'm basing that off of seeing him dribble the full court a couple times where he was flying past everybody and did it. So you might even have Wilt Chamberlain can probably do that because but so you have Wilt Chamberlain, Dwight Howard, David Robinson, and Kareem and Hakeem. I think even Kareem could play the stretch four well on offense. I think Kareem would be a good outside shooter, and he'd probably do good. He could do the 3-pointers. Now in today's game, he could be a stretch center, not just even a stretch 4, but a stretch 5. So I think he could be somebody that would go out and shoot those 3-pointers. But defense, I'm still thinking defense. For defense, I like Dwight Howard, David Robinson, Hakeem Olajuwon, and you say Bill Russell, but you need shooters if you're going to have 5 starters like Dwight Howard wanted from center, right? So those 3 guys I just mentioned, or the 2, Hakeem and David Robinson, and Kareem for shooters, are my shooters. So I don't know who I want at point guard. Whoever says they can do it, either Wilt Chamberlain or Dwight Howard maybe. And so all point guards aren't Steph Curry. There's point guards that don't shoot 3-pointers much, but they dribble in and score. And so Dwight could do that. I don't know what, but I'll tell you who's a good passer is Bill Russell. So maybe he could do it. But anyhow, back to the real evaluation here before I run out of time. I'm going to say that Magic Johnson. Well, no, hold on. I forgot what I'm evaluating. Jeez, there's a hunger pain I got. Well, not exactly, but you have. So we're doing centers. All right, centers. After my study right now, who are my favorite centers? And I'll go on a limb and I'll say I've studied David Robinson enough, and I've not studied him quite enough to be confident in this. But I'm pretty sure they purposely underrated David Robinson. So I'm not strong about it, and I still trust Wilt Chamberlain. Although he's not well-rounded, they changed the rules. David Robinson could slam dunk it from the free throw line. They changed the rules that you're not allowed to do that. He could have shot 100% from free throws. And so that wasn't fair, but he's not a good free throw shooter. He admits that. Him and Shaq are not good free throw shooters, and that's what they have in common. It's one thing they have in common. But I'm going to say I still like David Robinson on the well-rounded scale in front of Kareem because he's more well-rounded in my view. He can run the court more. I'm not saying Kareem can't. I still need to catch up on some footage and just reevaluate all that. But David Robinson's fast. Hakeem Olajuwon's fast. So I like those two guys over Kareem, personally. Their defensive ratings are higher, and I really like a defensive center. And you're going to win with Kareem, too. If you got Jordan, Bird, and you have an all-star team, Kareem's going to do the job as efficient almost as David Robinson or Hakeem, and I think they just barely have an edge, right? In my opinion, they barely have an edge over Kareem in the running game and just certain things on defense, the perimeter defense maybe. And I'm not saying Kareem can't do it at all. I'm just saying these guys may edge him out, and I might possibly be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure on perimeter defense they edge him out. Their defensive ratings do edge him out. There's no question. And then Dwight Howard, I like his defense. But does Dwight Howard do good against the taller centers? I don't know if he does as good against Kareem. I don't know if he does as good against David Robinson. But Shaquille doesn't have as good a rating. He's not as good as Dwight Howard on defense overall as far as being able to switch out to the perimeter. But Shaquille's taller. So it's, if I have two centers on my team, I really want three. I'll take David Robinson, Shaquille, and Dwight, or David Robinson, Shaquille, and Hakeem Olajuwon. I mean, but my favorite three centers, we'll say, are my two favorite. I have two favorite, and that's Hakeem and David Robinson. I have three favorite, and Wilt Chamberlain, David Robinson, and Hakeem Olajuwon. But I'm going to go ahead and assume, even though Wilt Chamberlain does not have a good free throw shot, he's well-rounded in every other area, except for three-pointers, which maybe he was okay at three-pointers because he would shoot his free throw he would step further out to shoot his free throws. And he shot better from further out, or he thought he could. So Wilt Chamberlain's just the best athlete of all of them. Track and field, he's the fastest, tallest, jump the highest. He's the strongest. He could bench press more than any of them, including Shaq, as far as I know. I don't think so. Here's my list. I'm just going to give you my list at this point. And if I have time, I'm going to review there's three well-rounded centers, and that's Kareem, David Robinson, and Hakeem Olajuwon. And then you got Shaq and Dwight, who are not good at free throws and are not good at outside shooters. Then you got Wilt Chamberlain standing alone, who is good he can shoot outside shots, but not three-pointers maybe. And we don't know. But he's not good at free throws, but he can shoot outside, and that's what Dwight and Shaq aren't as good at. Although they would beg to differ. Maybe Shaq might beg to differ. He has some teardrop shots or something like that he's pretty good at. Dwight does too, I think, but especially Shaq did. And then Bill Russell, on this level, I wouldn't call him a two-way player against these guys because he's just not a high scorer. Never was. So here's my list. I still like Wilt Chamberlain, David Robinson, Hakeem Olajuwon, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And because I got those other two guys, for me personally, I might put Shaq in front or Dwight in front, but I have to put Hakeem because he's more well-balanced. But so I put Kareem, and then Shaq and Dwight, and then I might have forgot somebody, but I got the Bill Russell. has to go later down, and there's other players, new players that might go ahead of him to me because they're not well rounded, because they are well rounded. But I have to go.